So all you probably know by now that a whole lot of people have been fired from the federal government over the last few weeks. And they've been, now they're scrambling to rehire a lot of them, right? Because it turns out that most people working for the government aren't just working at the Department of DEI woke or whatever the fuck. They're doing government functions that need to get done for the government to function. So they're scrambling to rehire a lot of these people now. Now you might be saying, well, yeah, maybe it sucks that they fucking fired them in the first place. But if they're rehiring them now, what's the problem? People get their job back. The government gets to get its functions done again. This was just a little hiccup. So what's the problem? The problem is that the government is still fucked. Let me tell you why. If you look at government pay versus private sector pay, if you're doing the same job function, you're almost always going to make much less money in the public sector than you would be making in the private sector. So I'm a firefighter, and my job itself isn't actually all that comparable. There's such a thing as private sector firefighters, but normally they're tied to like one industrial facility, or they're contracted for like one military base or something like that. The military also has its own like uniformed firefighters, but they contract civilians sometimes. But the scope of a private sector firefighter's job is pretty limited compared to a public sector firefighter. I have to be able to go anywhere, anytime, not only within my own primary first response area, but we get traveled to different stations. Like I might be today, depending on if we have too many people, I don't think I'm up to travel. But if I was up to travel, whoever's up to travel might find themselves on the opposite side of the city from where we normally work, right? So that our scope of responsibility is a bit bigger than private sector firefighters, and they do make less money than us, but that's because we work fundamentally different jobs. But so it's not a great point of comparison. But what is a great point of comparison is our mechanics. Our mechanics make about half as much money as diesel mechanics working on similarly complicated vehicles would make in the private sector. So why do they do that? Are they just shitty mechanics who couldn't get a private sector job? Fuck no. These people maintain a massive fucking fleet of diesel vehicles that are treated the worst way you can treat a diesel engine. The absolute worst goddamn shit you can do to a diesel engine is have it sitting there cold and then fucking hop in, rev it up, drive as fast as you fucking can for a few minutes and then turn it off again. And then hop in, rev it up, drive back, turn it off again. That is the worst way that you can treat a diesel engine. And that is the conditions under which these mechanics keep. Now guys will complain anytime their shit is broken for more than just a little bit, but all things considered, the mechanics do a pretty fucking good job of keeping our fleet of apparatus like ready to use. And so it's not that they just couldn't get private sector jobs, because they're fucking good mechanics. So why do they work in the public sector then, making so much less money? Well, there's two reasons to do that. First, you believe in the mission, right? You think you're doing good by doing the job that you're doing, whether that's keeping fire apparatus on the road, whether that's working for the federal government, making sure that fucking government functions get done, whatever it is. A lot of people working for the government believe in the mission of the government, and they're willing to make less money because of that. That's the altruistic reason people do it, right? But there's a second, more selfish reason too, and that's job security. If you're working in the private sector, no matter how good your contract is, no matter what you're offered, you never really and truly have job security, Because even if you have like a great ironclad union contract, all this shit, the entity you're contracting with, the company, can just stop existing. They can go bankrupt. Your employer can just not exist anymore, and then your job will just not exist anymore. And that brings instability in people's lives to a degree that you can avoid, by and large, working in the public sector. The government is going to keep existing. I'm sorry to any anarchists watching who really don't want that to be the case, but that is the case. The government is going to keep existing. So if you work in the public sector, in theory, you have a great degree of job stability that nobody in the private sector can possibly have. And a lot of people are willing to make less money to be more certain about what their life is going to look like. So, what's the problem with the firings then and rehirings? Well, the problem is that any federal employee who isn't a goddamn moron is now looking for private sector employment. That's the problem. Because let's look at that first factor, the mission. Do these people still believe in the mission? In the abstract, yeah, probably. Whatever function they were doing is a good function if they're allowed to do it. If they thought it was a good function before, they have no reason to not think it's a good function now, in the abstract. But what they do have reason to believe is that the big bosses in charge of how the functions are going to get done are fucking morons now. Are stupid or evil or both, right? So you can believe that the fucking mission is great if you're allowed to do it well, but they have no reason to believe that they're going to be allowed to do it well anymore, because it's been fucking proven to them that the people in charge are entirely fucking unreliable. So they probably are feeling a little more skeptical about whether they're actually going to be part of some good mission anymore. Now, what about job stability? That's out the fucking window. If you can get fired and rehired on a whim, it can happen again and again and again and again. Job stability doesn't exist for them anymore. So, there is no reason anymore to go work for the federal government when you could be making more money in the private sector doing the same shit. Which means that anybody worth a shit in the federal government is eventually going to get out of the federal government. Anyone who can get a private sector job doing the same shit for more money is going to. They would be a fool not to. A fool, or just more altruistic than I can ever imagine being. So, sure, these people are being rehired. The ones who haven't already found alternate work are going to take the offer to go back to work. But watch. There's going to be a lot of people leaving federal employment in the days to come because they cannot trust that the mission is going to be led well, and they cannot trust that they're going to have job security going forward. So the higher pay of the private sector is looking pretty fucking enticing for them right about now. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about that.